Irene Buchanan, and our team co-hosting. It's the second meeting. I don't know if you were able to be present, at the first one, but like today's our meeting, it's dedicated to teachers' online presence, which is a tricky thing. Yes, so we're lucky to welcome our guest speaker today, clinical assistant professor, and also a graduate program director in gerontology, McCormick School, Professor Ellen Birchander.
Thank you, Irene. As Irene mentioned, my name is Ellen Birchander. I have been at the university for 20 years, and I have been teaching and running an online program for that length of time. We started when online instruction was not as prevalent or popular as it is now. And we did not have the tools, resources, or supports when we started. What we did have was instructional design from UMass to hold our hands and help us through. And they have been phenomenal from day one. When I started, we were using a platform called Prometheus, which dates me. That just shows that I've been doing this for about 3 centuries. And we've evolved over the years to where we are now, and apparently we will continue to evolve and learn new programs and utilize new tools that'll help us be successful as we go through. I've worked in the field of aging for the majority of my career and continue, despite the fact that I am the graduate program director for the Management of Aging Services program, I continue to do consulting in the field and work with people in the field and grants, et cetera. And I do it because I'm passionate about working with older adults, and I am also passionate about growing the field of aging. So working in a university where I have the opportunity to help people become successful leaders in the field is very satisfying for me personally. That's why I'm here. Teaching online, and I've taught both in the classroom for many, many, many years and online for many, many years, and I've taught both undergraduates and graduate students. We all know that it's night and day. Teaching online and teaching in classroom is night and day. Teaching undergraduates and teaching graduates is night and day. Teaching people who want to do research and teaching people who want an applied career, night and day. What that means is that we have to be flexible, that we have to be responsive, and that we have to listen to students. And the only way we can be successful at that is to have supports and be supportive. So before I start today, I was wondering if we could go around the room and if you could introduce yourself and tell me what department you're from. Do you teach graduate or undergraduate classes? And what is your favorite class to teach? I'm just curious to what you love to teach. Can I start with, is it data? Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm Dada. Yeah.
Dada.
So I'm a PhD candidate at School of Global Inclusion and Social Development. So I have not taught anything or not taught anything, but of course I'm planning to teach in future. And my favorite subject to teach is maternal health rights. So, and I would like to teach enhance my students to learn and try to reduce the inequities of maternal health across the globe.
Excellent, thank you. Diego?
Hello, hi everyone. So my name is Diego Mancilla and I teach translation, Spanish-English translation. We have this certificate program geared to prepare professional translators. And we do a little bit of interpreting, but it's mostly written translation. And I also teach, or used to teach, not now, but I used to teach Spanish, so foreign languages, and also I used to teach courses related to teaching, to pedagogy related to foreign language education. And that's, I really love love teaching and teaching online. I've been doing that since 2012, I believe. And with the whole program was started to be face-to-face, and I taught for like 5 years face-to-face, and then it transitioned to be like hybrid. And then the next year was fully online. So, and it's been on fully online since then. So so yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Israel. Okay.
So hello. So I don't teach anything. I'm on the communication department, and I want to create like online courses of my knowledge. So I want to learn how I can sell, you know, my luggage, my knowledge, and create like an online course. And if I were to teach something, I would like to be like a theater teacher.
Okay, I'm sorry, a what teacher?
Theater.
Oh, theater. Oh, okay, theater. Yes.
Yeah, I would like to
Wonderful.
be, yeah, for, you know, kids, young kids and things like that, or, you know, learn to create online courses,
Excellent.
you know,
Thank
to
you.
sell my knowledge. Yeah, you're welcome.
Becky.
Hello, my name is Becky Del Vecchio. I work at the Institute for Early Education, Leadership and Innovation. I teach graduate students and undergraduate students, mostly in-service teachers. I teach online and live. And my favorite course to teach is instructional leadership.
Ooh, okay.
And I'll be off camera because I have to eat my lunch, and I'm sorry
Oh,
about
please,
that. But I'm here.
please.
No, that's fine. It's
Um,
lunch and learn.
Exactly. Mario.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mario. I'm a PhD candidate at the Global Governance and Human Security Program. I took 2 courses 2 years ago, one at the Honors College and the other was at the Global Affairs Online Program. And I've been teaching courses for the OLI program. OLI is the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at UMass Boston.
Yes.
And I will teach a class this next semester for the OLI program about women in Latin America, from Latin America. And I think my favorite class to teach probably is something related to global digital health, which is like my field of study. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm sure Jim's thrilled that you're teaching in the OLLI program. Let's see, Kathleen.
Hi, good afternoon. So I'm Kathleen Babrick. I have been an adjunct faculty at UMass Boston for, I think, almost 15 years. I teach in what was known as the ASEP continuing ed program of, it's a certification program for folks who want to be licensed alcohol and drug counselors. So prior to COVID, taught fully in person, then remote, and we still teach some of our sections remotely over the summer. So I have not done fully online courses, so I'm kind of hesitant about that. I really like, since it's a counseling class, that's my favorite course to teach as a sort of trained social worker and working in the field of human services in my full-time life. I love teaching the counseling class in person, and I try to manage that on my remote classes by doing breakout rooms, because practice is really the key there, and about communication skills. So I guess sort of thoughts about how to manage that in a fully online program, when I can't really test people's skills so much by actually hearing them, seeing them, those kinds of things. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Melissa.
Hi, my name is Melissa, and I have never taught a class before. Last week I was actually thinking about creating online courses just because I'm really passionate about psychology and self-development and wellness. And so I kind of wanted to like share that knowledge. And so I just got an email about this class and I thought it was coincidental and very timely. So I decided to join and see what I can take away from it.
Well, welcome and thank you all for coming today. Before we begin, Rosado, we haven't met, so it's nice to finally meet you. And Irene, we're old buddies, so it's nice to be here. And thank you both for inviting me. Would you two like to talk a little bit about yourselves and tell everyone what you do? I don't know. I made the erroneous assumption, which is really bad when teaching online or in person, of assuming that everybody knows you, but they may not. So would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure, yeah. So Rizardo, would you like to start?
Sure, can say a few words. Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Rizardo. I'm a member of the Learning Design Services. I'm the lead online learning designer, and I've had the pleasure of meeting some of you, and it's nice to meet the others whom I haven't had the chance to meet before. Some of you may know that I am the facilitator of the Teaching and Learning Online course, where we help faculty design and develop fully online courses. And so that is pretty much the extent of my teaching experience. As the facilitator of the course, I don't have any formal teaching experience, but in my career with Learning Design Services, I've led workshops on campus and online. And, I do prefer the online environment. So hopefully I can help some of you design your new online courses there.
Thank you. Irene?
Okay, so I guess, I'm one of the founding, I don't know, parent of the group. So I've been at UMass Boston, I can't believe how many years. So when I started, we had clearly defined teams. Again, the online learning was, done then by CAPS, was University College, and it was other titles that specific, business unit had. So, and then, and that was part of the group that really, again, took care of, technology and face-to-face. So can you imagine how long ago it was? Since then, yeah. Since then, again, the group merged. We also kind of, it's really strange that and I still can't, adjust to that we now talk about multi-model, delivery of courses. Again, not just online, there are also some, flavors of online, and now it's full online and remote and blended and face-to-face. But I can imagine that anyone will be teaching in the classroom and not using a single technology. It will be something, even if it will be, I don't know, legacy technology, but so I love today's session because we won't use any technology except for Zoom, but really want to have a conversation and talk to each other with, I think it's really cherished, communication, even if we're on Zoom, but the feeling and seeing everyone's faces, it's really a treat. So thank you, Ellen, again, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, Ellen is, again, an amazing educator, a veteran of teaching online, but moreover, Ellen, built the program, the very successful online program from scratch. I think it's correct, right? Yes.
It is correct, except it wasn't just me. Nobody does anything in a vacuum. It's a team of people.
If
it wasn't for the instructional designers,
but still heart and soul of this program. Yeah. So
okay, we have one more person who's joined us. Jacqueline, would you like to introduce yourself? I asked people if they would tell us what department they're from, whether what their favorite course was to teach, and whether or not they are accustomed to teaching graduates or undergraduates, or have you not taught at all? Jacqueline, can you hear us?
I was muted, of course. All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, so feel free to call me Jackie. I actually have never taught a course at UMass Boston. All of my classes have been taught undergraduate, actually at Bunker Hill Community College. And I typically teach behavioral science courses, psychology, sociology, intro courses, human growth and development, social psychology. And I've taught complete 100% in the classroom. I've taught web enhanced, which means you're 100% in the classroom, but your homework and like your exams are online. I've taught hybrid, so half-time in classroom, half-time online. And currently I am teaching 100% web courses through a platform called Moodle.
I don't like Moodle, Jackie. I'm sorry. I've also
I'm
taught
trying
with
to get
Moodle.
used to this new Moodle. They did an update after spring semester. I'm struggling a little bit with the new format. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it's not my favorite platform. So that's just my opinion. That and a nickel will get you absolutely nothing. So there you go. I'm sure it's fine. It might be just me. Well, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate your joining. I'm going to start by telling you just a little story, and then I want to ask you questions. Not questions that you may, it's not a quiz. It's things for you to think about as you develop your approach to teaching. When we started the program that Irene was referring to 20 years ago, we came. All right. I worked in the field of aging for a long time, from direct service in private nonprofits. I worked for-profit organizations. I worked for the State Unit on Aging. And no matter where we went, we tried to hire people into the field of aging. And people would either have great management experience, but would know nothing about older adults, or they'd know a lot about older adults, but would know nothing about public policy. And in this field, and aging is a field, you had to have a really strong base and be like, you have a good understanding of a lot of variety of things in order to be successful. So when people came into the field, their learning curve would be so high because they would be, we have company. We would have, they would have like a really good solid base in one area, and then their learning curve would be harder. So my friend Lillian Glickman and I, she was secretary of the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, and I was assistant secretary, used to say all the time, if we ever had an opportunity to start a program that would give people a strong base for them to be successful leaders in the field of aging, we do it. UMass gave us that opportunity. And when we came in, we started initially with hybrid, a couple courses in person, and then the rest online. And within just a very short period of time, it was 100% online. And our students are all over the country, which is phenomenal and problematic. Because to my mind, what makes a successful class? Obviously, you have to have decent content. You have to be able to give students what they need to know to be successful. But how do you really build excellence in a classroom? And that's easy to do when you're walking in front of people or around people, and when you're looking them in the eye and you're at their level and you're engaging in conversation, because you have that interpersonal interaction. And so you can build relationships. And that's what teaching is. You are building relationships. You're building networks. You're gaining an understanding of every individual in that classroom, and they're getting to know you. And that's so important in developing a really good model for sharing information and building success. So my question to you, my first question is, how do you build community in an online environment? Any thoughts? How does it, what works for you? Go ahead, Becky.
One of the things that has helped me, even in those 100% online courses, is having office hours where I you know, even like the first time saying, if everybody could stop by for 20 minutes on this day, it would be super great. I'd love to have you, just to like kind of have a proof of life kind of situation where they see that I'm like a real human being in a messy office. Like, we're all humans here, because, you know, I do my very best to project my humanness in my emails and in my announcements and, you know, like through my assignments and my feedback and all that. But sometimes just like seeing me, and for me to see them, but honestly, they're hardly ever on camera, I think makes a difference.
So these are virtual meetings, they're not in person.
Yeah, correct.
Yes.
They're, yeah, because I've got students all over the place. They couldn't possibly be in one place at once.
Me too, right. Okay, good. That's great. That's a great tool, and it's also it humanizes all of us together in a classroom. Melissa?
Yeah, I can give some context from a student perspective. So I've taken an online degree, and so what I found useful was the discussion forums, because it allowed me to connect with my peers and give them quote unquote expertise advice from my perspective, and that way we just continue to just build a connection throughout the courses.
Excellent. Yeah, discussion forums often come in handy. It also lets you learn how your students write, which is a very important aspect of working virtually, especially with the issues with AI now and the tools that are available to students. It's important for you to hear their voice through their writing. And so discussion forums often give us that opportunity to understand how people write. And if you take that further, you get to know how they process information. So that's an excellent example. Mario?
I did different group activities. Of course, forums can be sometimes a group activity, but in general, in the past, I assigned them to work in, I don't know, like in presentations or an essay or things like that in groups. So they had to organize themselves, and well, we had some classes where they broke the assignments, but or sometimes they just had to submit the assignments. But I think that kind of helps to create this sense of a class, even if you are working online.
Group work, I agree, is incredibly important. And I don't know if any of you have had this experience, but when we do group assignments, all right, so the program that I run is 12 courses for the master's program, and at least 6 of them are required to have group projects. And initially, when students are first come into the program and they hear they have to do group work, they're not happy. They don't like doing group work initially. And I explain to each and every student, what profession do you know where you can be an island and not work with other people? And honestly, even accountants have to work with other people, and they work with numbers all day. So if you can come up with a profession where you are alone in a room all day long and never have to talk or work with another human being, then maybe we could talk about dissolving your group projects. So far, no one has ever been able to come up with anything. Group work is so important. Not only does it build community, does it help them to build relationships, it teaches them how to work with other people, and how to work with us. And it also, I learn every single class from students. I learn as much as they do. I learn about their personalities. I learn about their goals and dreams. I learn about how they process information. And invariably, I learn new tools of how to interact with other students going forward. So every year, hopefully I become a better teacher because of the interactions that I'm fortunate enough to have with students. But group work is key. It's really important. Dada.
Yeah. So if like whenever I plan to teach online course and develop, like along with what everyone said, very interesting, I would like to add one question at the beginning of the session, like ice-breaking question, which will like personalize each one's experience, and would like to know each other more persons to like, which will help us to build a community and like feel each other, like understand each other even on like digital platform. So I will have one like question, like spending 10-15 minutes on that.
Icebreakers are very important. And so that is a wonderful tool to use to start to know people. And the more we know our students, the better teachers we will be. Melissa.
Oh yeah, I wanted to make a point regarding the working in groups. So from a student perspective, I like the fact that you have to learn how to delegate and be able to distribute the work evenly. The problem with that is that some people don't actually pull their weight, and then it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to I don't know, like snitch on that person for not like pulling their weight. But so I guess like the hard part from the instructor's level or perspective is like, how do you make sure that everybody pulls their weight in a project without it like affecting morale,
That is a really good question. And that happens in real life too. There are some people who are going to put in more effort and some people who are going to do more. And there are some people who are going to be too controlling and some people who are not going to do enough. And so that is part of the process of learning how to interact with people, how to motivate people, how to ensure that people have an understanding of what they're doing. And it takes practice and it takes work, and you get better at it. You'll get better at working in groups with people and helping people take responsibility for their share of the work. And instructors, the more you do group work, the more you know who's doing the work. And if you don't make the group project the very first project they're working on, by the time the middle of the semester rolls around, you have a pretty good sense of every single student's capacity, commitment, interaction, how they write, how they think, so that you know who's doing which piece. So it's a process, and you're right. You don't have the answers right away, but you do get eventually you have a sense of how to motivate people to step up. It is a process. Jackie. Jackie, you're muted.
Yes, so I was thinking about what Melissa was saying in terms of that group work. And I was definitely that student who always seemed to end up in a group with someone who did not pull their weight. And so as an instructor, when I started implementing group work, one of the things that I tried to make sure that I did was put as much of that group work inside of classroom time as possible, right? And so now that I'm teaching online, what I try to make them do is, and I believe Melissa talked about this, weekly discussions, right? And so I give them a rubric of what I expect to see in terms of content within those weekly discussions. And then also some guidelines in terms of how do you respond to one another, because as part of that, their grade for the discussions, they do get graded on whether or not they're responding to at least 2 other classmates' original discussion post.
Right.
And the first week, it's just an introduction and it's extra credit.
That's excellent. Another tool that I use in my classes is if I have students do a group project, before they enter into the group portion, they all have to do topical briefs on the subject matter. So I already have a sense of how they already have to be invested in the material. They've already had to do some of the work individually. So I know where they all are at the starting point, and that also helps. So that's 2 more tips that we can use when we assign group projects to students. Other comments about this particular aspect of teaching online?
I'd like just to ask a question. So do you think, and I understand again, you teach professionals, you teach already students who are, good for their time management. They're also much more aware about, their own learning styles and have experience, to collaborate and communicate, with other people. So again, that's a huge difference. Do you have any tips? Because again, everyone, talks about how difficult it is to, besides what you just mentioned, any tips for the faculty who are new to that, like how you form groups? Again, what do you use? Yes, and also how much you give them, I don't know, the freedom and scaffolding, or how much you involved if, like, I don't know, dynamics in the group, like not doing well, again, there it's like, it's the group performs not, like, again, not up to your expectations.
So let's pretend that we're doing first semester freshmen, 18-year-olds just out of high school, and we're working with this group of students who are emerging adults who have not have ever really worked in a professional environment, who are brand new. And it's really important to start where the student is. And so when you work with freshmen, it's important to get to it. You start where you start at the bottom, brand new. Many of them may not know how to learn. Many of them may not know what to expect from college classes. And so sometimes it's okay to provide a platform and instruction that's very, very concrete initially in the beginning of the first class. But by the end of the first class, it's important to teach them to take some initiative. So you can start with a very concrete set of instructions. Do A, B, C, D, and E in this order. And then you're going to move to this group and do A, B, C, D, and E. But they also need to learn to take that material and bring it to the next level on their own. And that's kind of the hard part. I mean, if you're teaching, and I can't speak to this because I only know how to teach what my subject matter. We're all subject experts in our area. But so, for example, languages. That's pretty concrete. There's a lot of memorization. There's a lot of you have to understand the nuances and the differences between languages. You have to commit to practice. You have to train your ear to listen. You have to discipline yourself to your own learning style and learning abilities, and manipulate it so that it fits appropriately into the classroom setting. And when you're 18 years old and you're not used to that, that might be kind of tricky. So the one thing that I try to remember, even with graduate students, is you start where the person is. And if you have a class of 100, you can't do that. So you have to do it by starting with the base and just making sure that everything is structured and fairly rigid, so that your measurements are concise and precise. If you have smaller classes, then you have the flexibility of getting to know individuals and then being able to mentor them along. And that makes a huge difference. We're not always lucky enough to have small classes. So, as students progress into their majors, they'll be in smaller classes, and then you can get to know them and help them with their challenges and promote their strengths. Not always easy to do in introductory courses. Like if you're teaching intro psych with 200 people, it's read the chapter, take a test, listen to the lecture. And so you have to really be creative to figure out how to get to know those students. And sometimes it's not so easy. I mean, they have to take the initiative. And so it's a matter of inviting them and making them feel comfortable to taking those initiatives. And you're still not going to get to know them as well as you will later in their academic careers. But you set the stage, you teach them how to learn, You teach them how to listen. You teach them how to process. You teach them how to memorize. You teach them how to bring information forward. Not always easy because everybody's different, but you can do it. And in an online environment, when you have more tools to access their work, then you have a better ability to assess. You can look at how often they're accessing material. You can look to see what they're reading and what they're doing. You can look to see what their discussions look like. You can evaluate what they're writing. Again, I recommend, and I didn't always recommend this because I didn't think it years ago, it didn't exist, but then when it did, I just didn't see the value. And now I really see the value of putting all your assignments and turn it in to see if they're using AI to help them write. And you know what, it's one thing to have AI help with grammar. You know, I need help with grammar too. My spelling is atrocious. You know, I need help with some technological, I benefit from some technological supports. I don't know what I would do without spell check. But now that AI can actually write papers and answer questions for you, it's really important to be on top of what students understand and how they're using technology. And I feel badly saying that, because I'm not saying that AI is bad, because for students where English is not first language, having support for writing is not a bad thing, because their understanding, their content, their expertise development is great. It's just a matter of making sure that the line's not crossed. And that's real. We're in a position now where it's really hard to do, and it's something we need to be aware of. And, you know, I don't know what to say about that other than it's an issue we all have to think about and consider and talk to our students about. I mean, I talk to my students about this. You know, if you're going to use AI, tell me up front, because if I run it through, turn it in, if an assignment comes through and it's 90% something, if somebody else's work, or you know, that's a problem. And so, you know, we need to build the relationships with our students and address the issues up front, because our goal is to produce successful professionals who make a difference in the world. That's what we're here to do. And the way to do that is to teach them to learn. And we can't teach them everything they need to know, but we can teach them how to obtain information, how to use information, and how to take advantage of materials to be the best that they can be. And we have all these tools online now for us to use, and it's a matter of helping them use those tools as well in a way that promotes their success versus holds them back. And so that's not always the easiest thing. So this leads into the importance of establishing channels of communication. And in order to do that, you have to interact. So in all of our classes in my program, we require a minimum of 5 synchronous meetings. Usually we do them with Zoom. Usually there's more than 5 too. The reason we do this is because we want our students to get to know us as instructors, and we want to get to know them, but we also want them to get to know each other, because the field of aging is a small field and they're building network connections. So right now we have just shy of 500 graduates in the program that live and work across the country. And what's really bizarre is that they keep in touch with each other and they keep in touch with us. I sat next to people in graduate school for years and years and years, a couple of times, and I don't keep in touch with them. Yet the people in our program have never, most of them have never met face to face. I've had students start businesses together. I've had students they've started an alumni groups where they hold seminars and information centers. They share job information. They share research. They go to conferences together still, and they've been out of the program for years. They keep in touch with us and help us. They help our current students. They hire our current students to work in their organizations. And I'd like to take credit for developing this community and developing this entire network. I have absolutely no idea on this earth how this happened. I am just grateful as all get out, but I can't take credit for it. I think I wish I could, and I wish I could tell you how it happened so you could all do this too, because it's phenomenal for your programs and for what you do. But I honestly have no idea how it happened. But it does happen. And I think part of it is opening channels of communication. And if you do that while they're your students, and they're open not only with each other, but with faculty and with the department, then, you know, it establishes a pattern that they become accustomed to, and then they just repeat the pattern, which is fun. Now you have to remember, I've had 20 years to work on this too, you know, so it wasn't always, it didn't always work this way, but it seems to now. So that's been helpful. Another helpful approach is to set expectations. We, in our program, set expectations for success. Before anybody is accepted into the program, before they even apply, I talk to them. So, you know, if you're applying to Harvard and you get in, it's a really big deal because they only accept like 4% of the people that apply or less, right? It's not like that in my program. We would fail on that statistic dramatically because I talk to everybody before they apply. And if I don't think they're going to be successful in the program, or if they don't really like older adults, or if they want something clinical like a counseling program, I tell them up front, don't apply, because we can't give you what you need and you're not going to be successful in the field that we train you for if this is what you want, because this is not what we do. So our acceptance rate's pretty high because I tell people don't apply if they're not going to be successful. So that relationship starts with our program before people even apply. And then we keep in touch after they graduate. So when you establish expectations of positive professional interactions from day one, and you maintain those throughout the entire academic experience and then afterwards into their professional experiences, it helps to develop relationships and garner interactions that are really positive. Now, there's a right way to do this, and there's a wrong way to do this. I did it the wrong way. I'll be honest. So as the graduate program director and the director, you know, of this particular program, every single student in the program has my cell phone number. So I have to set boundaries in a different way. I do that because our program is non-traditional in that we have most of the people who teach in the program, most of the instructors are practitioners. They're professionals in the field. They're CEOs of organizations. They're environmental gerontologists from DC. There's someone who lives in Switzerland who works for the World Health Organization as the director of aging. You know, so we have really amazing people who teach in our program. And our students benefit by their knowledge, their experiences, and their interactions. The rule that I tell my instructors is you do not give out your phone numbers, you give out mine, because they should not be burdened with some of the difficulties and minutia. They're there to share their expertise, to build community in their classrooms, to train people to be excellent, to promote success and to share experiences and knowledge. So they do that through, you know, all the things that we've already talked about: group assignments, discussions, synchronous meetings, presentations, some lecture, good discussions online and even in the synchronous meetings, and a fairly rigorous evaluative process. But our students are also told that our number one interest is for them to be successful in the field. And so if they do an assignment and they do it poorly, like in my classes specifically, if they turn something in and it's wrong, I give it back and tell them to do it again. Do it until you get it right, so you know how to do it and you can be successful. That's not a traditional approach. It also takes an awful lot of time and effort and energy. Giving people your phone number, not a smart move, although very few people take advantage of it and use it poorly. I mean, most people do not abuse that privilege. But in an emergency, and there are some emergencies sometimes, having a phone number that of someone you can text and get a response, so you don't feel like you're reading a chapter online and then, you know, taking an exam and going into cyberspace. You know, that's often frightening for students. So to have a real live human being in a body that they can contact makes a difference. Shouldn't be your instructors. It needs to be somebody. If they were in person on land, there'd be an office they could go to where they could talk to a real live body. So I'm the real live body in this program. So it's important to set boundaries so that students know they're being heard. They know they have access to people, but that it doesn't violate your personal space. And that's really important, because you don't want to burn out and you don't want to get angry, and we're all human beings. And so if there's someone who's particularly difficult, because there are difficult students, just as we can be difficult sometimes, there are students who often can be a challenge, and it's not appropriate for one instructor to have to deal with that on their own. So setting boundaries and working in an environment where you develop a team, where you have a support system, is really important. So when you're teaching, it's really important to have the support of your coworkers, of your department, of the people around you, and building those relationships are just as important as building the relationships with your students. So it's like a micro approach of working in your classroom and establishing your classroom relationships to ensure success of your students and of your class. But it's also building relationships of your coworkers and other instructors, so that you have a support system for yourself to be reborn when you need to be, because it is occasionally very stressful to teach. And then it's even one step further. You build relationships with the field, and that's probably the hardest for an academician, because we live in a world where theoretical and applied are light years apart and there's no bridge. So it's really, really important to keep your finger in the pulse of what's going on in the field, in your areas of interest. Because to be an excellent researcher is one thing, to be expert in a subject matter expert in your area is phenomenal. But if you can't translate that for students into something that's applied and usable, then it doesn't work well. So having said that, I just made this job sound impossible and overwhelming and not a lot of fun. But the reality is, it's all of those things. It's possible, it is fun, and it's still a little overwhelming sometimes, but the rewards are just incredible. So what are some of the rewards for what we do? I mean, I can list a bazillion of them, but well, not really. That's an exaggeration, clearly. But I can list many rewards of doing what we do. But what are some of the rewards that you experience? Oh, and if you're having a bad day, and we all do, don't feel like you have to answer because it's harder. If you're having a good day, I'm sure a lot of things are popping into mind. So go ahead. Go ahead, Diego.
Hi. It's been great hearing you. You all. I agree with everything you said, and I think what gives me tremendous amount of pleasure is to see former students being successfully exercising the career and actually coming back to the program. We constantly invite former students into the program, and we give them an opportunity to share their working experience beyond the program with the current students, and that is very valuable. Students really appreciate that, and also the graduates, they feel proud that they achieve success, and they are able to share, and they do it with pleasure. So yeah, that's one thing that I enjoy. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Who else? University, you create WhatsApp groups for each class. That's wonderful. I can imagine it is hard to manage. Anyone else? I love it when students. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Irene.
I have a question. So yeah, thank you for sharing, your expertise, but also it's so multi-layered. I think it's very, very important and also difficult, when you talk about, the sustaining support and sharing expertise and their aha moments and what works and what doesn't among faculty. So how usually it's done within the program? So is there anything that you facilitate? Do you encourage, do you run regular meetings that are less structured? How does it work? And again, it was there how you did it in the past, and did anything after 20 years? What do you do differently? And what also, again, any advice for, I don't know, for younger or for newbie instructors, what can they do?
One of the
Thank
things that we started during COVID, which we've continued because we found that it was invigorating, is we do something called virtual office hours. That's not limited to a class, but to everybody in the program. So once a month, we invite people to a meeting. It's first Wednesday at 7 p.m. We do a Zoom meeting, and we invite not only students, current students, but alumni, faculty, and people from the field. And we put out an invitation. Sometimes it has a topic. We talk about an issue that's in the news that is related to older adults. Sometimes we talk about something, new research that's out. Sometimes it's just a session about what's going on in the field and what's happening with jobs and workforce development issues or whatever it is. And we can have anywhere from 6 to 60 people show up depending on the topic and what the environment is like. That has been incredible because 1, it's motivating. 2, it puts us in our place and keeps us real. And 3, it's a connection. It's a connection where nobody's being judged. There's no exams, there's no grades, everybody's invited. It allows students to see what the world is like outside of the classroom, and it allows the field to come in and see what students are thinking about and talking about. So it's very, very helpful. The other thing that I would say is one of the things that I've learned most is to be humble, because I mess up all the time. I am so human. I don't get everything right. I don't know everything. Students often can put me in my place, and I'm glad for it because it helps me grow and learn. So I don't have to know everything. I don't have to be the best at everything. I don't have to pretend that, you know, I'm the boss, because it's a collaborative effort. Learning is a collaborative effort. It's my job to guide. It's my job to make sure that there's control in the classroom. And more importantly, it's my job to make sure there's respect in the classroom for everybody. And I can guide the content, and I can share. But I don't have to be perfect, and I can make mistakes, and it's okay. And once I recognized that as the years have gone by, that I was not going to be perfect and that I was not going to get it right every time, I all of a sudden relaxed. And when I was relaxed, I was able to communicate better. And when I was able to communicate better, I listened a whole lot better. When I listened a whole lot better, I heard what people needed, and I was able to provide better direction and better and more opportunities for students. So I think that made a difference. It's 1 o'clock. I wanted to say thank you all for having me here, and thank you for participating. I hope you found the conversation useful.
Very
Thank you
useful.
so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, great ideas.
Yes, thank you. It's been very inspiring, empowering. It's been great. Thank you very much.
Nice
Thank you
to
for
see all of
joining
you.
us. Yeah. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.